I discovered so much about the different narratives in my head, and I'm like, who's put that there? You know, like I'd hear a thing, I'm like, wait a second, I don't actually believe that. I don't believe that I should feel less than. I don't think I am. Like, so those sorts of realizations started to come through when I sat long enough with myself to hear what was going on internally. My kids already have it way better off than I do. I mean, they occupy different social locations than me, but like that already is enough for me to know that they'll have less barriers to using their voice than I did.
I'm gonna ask you a hard question. Surprisingly, like we haven't done it yet. How you guys doing? My name is Travell. We're here for another episode of Unlinear, where we track the unlinear path of our guest, sort of where they were and what brought them here. Today, I have the great pleasure of sitting with Robin from GOODBODYFEEL Movement and Therapy.
That's right.
Who is servicing people, I would say, around the GTA, sort of practicing out in Toronto, based out in Hamilton as well. So a nice, well-rounded sort of area.
I get around.
There we go. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So there's this common thread that I'm always interested in with people who make it a vocation to help people be better people, which is who they are as a person and what made them. Tell us about your parents.
Okay, just dropping it so deep right away.
We jump in.
My parents did the best they could with what they had.
Oh, okay. It's getting juicy. Yeah, that's the opening line. I have a lot to say, but I'm not kicking anybody's teeth. All right, listen, baby. Where's your father from?
Okay, so you picked the spiciest character. My dad is from the Philippines, Manila. Okay. I am estranged from my dad, not by choice. Okay, so we're gonna get really real here.
Yeah, we shoot right away. It's unlinear. We shoot right away.
We're gonna get really real here. My dad has another family. Okay. They are the legal family.
Okay.
I am a love child, baby. I am the product of an affair.
Okay.
And we were kept secrets. I have a younger sister. She's 6 years younger. Same parents.
Okay.
Just to paint you some timeline.
Okay.
And my dad is one of those like really charming, false promise kind of person, and kept.
I'm Jamaican. I know. I don't mean that. It's a cultural thing.
In the Philippines too.
Yeah. Those sort of a man about town.
A man about town he was. Yeah, and so he dangled being chosen to us our entire lives. Like,
so you were born under the understanding that there's another family.
Yes. And I will always big up my mom. Yeah. My mom is an angel. Yeah. She never hid anything from me. She always met my questions with truth. Wow. And the way she described it is she'd always wait to see what I asked, and she'd answer that specifically. And if I had no follow-up questions, she'd
hands off.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were the architect of your own truth.
Yes.
Insofar as when you were ready to be brave enough to ask a question, is when she'd say, okay, this is where that door leads.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. And then that way, that was the way she was gauging what I was developmentally ready to understand. Ooh. Right? Like, we're developmentally ready to understand something if we're able to form a question around it. Okay. So she always met my questions with honesty and never pushed a narrative, just like very matter-of-factly said the thing. And he was in our lives for a really long time. And only recently did we start to become estranged because he got sick with Alzheimer's. Whoa. He's sick with Alzheimer's. His other family cut us out. And the only thing I can think of is they want us not included in the estate when he dies.
Wow.
Is what I'm assuming.
You think it's a measure of capitalism?
I think so, because I used to be in contact with one of my half-sisters, and she used to be really friendly with me and would call me sister, and would even, like, she'd invite me over or we'd invite her over. And when I found out through the grapevine that my dad had Alzheimer's, like she didn't tell me. I found out through the grapevine. Yeah. I reached out to her and extended care and said, oh my goodness, I'm so surprised. Let me know how I can help. He's my dad too. We're family. Yeah. Despite the gruesome circumstances of becoming family, we're family. And I want to be able to show up. And she blocked me. And then, now we have no contact with my dad. One day I'll feel courageous enough to knock on the door. I know where he lives.
You do? Okay. Do. Wow. Okay.
But one day I'll feel courageous enough to just be like, can I see my dad?
Yeah.
Estranged, not by choice. He did the best he could with what he knew. My mom did better.
Of course.
And I have so much love and respect for the values my mom shared with me, despite the non-altruistic ways she created family, right? Like it wasn't, she was manipulated too. And so, there might be judgments around what it means to be the second woman.
Did your mom know was he married and she was the second one, or he was just like
she found out after she found out after she was pregnant with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he was married.
He was married. And so my older sister, I have 3 older sisters from his wife.
From his previous relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
His other relationship,
yes,
not previous, right?
Yes.
So you have 3 older sisters, and then there's yourself, and then there's your younger sibling.
Yes.
I presume his wife stayed with him.
Yes. They're still a whole family unit over there.
Did your mom ever repartner with anybody?
No, because he wouldn't let her.
Can you explore, what does that mean to you?
My goodness.
Can we explore that? No, it's a powerful statement. Again, at any point in time, we can pivot. It's a powerful statement. He wouldn't let her.
Yeah, my dad was very misogynistic.
Sure.
Like, he is the epitome of toxic masculinity.
Wow.
And to him, we were his property.
Wow.
Yeah. And he wouldn't let her. And he tried to interfere with her friendships. My mom loves to play mahjong. My mom's Filipino too. Yeah. She loves mahjong. It's like part of the, like my dad was karaoke. My mom was mahjong. Those were their domains.
I got it.
And my mom had a crew that she would play karaoke, or not karaoke. She'd play mahjong with every weekend. And my dad didn't like that because there were some men around, some who were single or were partnered and then broke up. And he started cracking down on no mahjong in our house, even though he didn't live with us. It's a whole thing.
Was he supportive financially?
No, that's the other thing. He wasn't.
So just authority through authority's sake.
Through intimidation.
Wow.
And I think people like that know their prey, know how to pick their prey.
You think so?
I think so. I think people like that know how to pick their prey.
Oof.
And my mom, and I inherited this from her. I'm trying to not be a people pleaser, but I went through so much, the labor of trying to keep everyone happy so that I'll be accepted, so that I'll be chosen by my dad. And that was what I was witnessing from my mom, her labor of trying to rise from secrecy.
Trying to win.
And even in her sibling dynamics, the same thing. She's the middle of 7 and the youngest daughter.
Yeah.
So her too, like my older aunts, really smart, really beautiful, did well in school. So my mom had so much competition of trying to be number one.
Okay.
And that carried over into her romantic relationships. And so her striving to be number one was the perfect personality trait for someone like my dad to be like, you want to be number one? This is what you got to do. If you want me to choose you, this is what you got to do.
I'm going to ask you a hard question. surprisingly, if you haven't done it yet, do you think there was anything your mom could have done to be chosen, or was it just the structure that your dad created for his pleasure?
Yeah, my dad would have never left his wife for my mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's such an interesting baseline for us to talk to the people about what it is that you do. What is your vocation? What's your discipline?
Right. So I work with individuals and groups to create mindful ways of relating, both to their body, to their mental health, to their emotions, and to their spaces and the people they encounter to their spaces. So I run a business called GOODBODYFEEL Movement and Therapy. GOODBODYFEEL, I believe that collective liberation means that all bodies feel good. And what does that mean for all bodies to feel good? It means we have a deep understanding of what our personal body needs and feels and how to tend to those needs and feelings through mental health, through emotional health, through physical movement, and through mindful relationships. Like, can I create a trusting line of communication between you and me so that I can trust that you know how to keep me safe and you can trust that I can keep you safe. Even when we're angry or upset or disappointed in each other, can we keep each other safe?
I think I would speak for a lot of people when we'd say this is a practice that if even only on a tertiary level, we probably all want to be aware of, because it's a pursuit of, in terms of how I hear it, sustainable comfort, sustainable belonging. But how does one begin to study or to help guide people through this path of eternal belonging and comfort? What were your steps that brought you there?
My steps were to acknowledge the ways that I truly didn't feel comfortable and truly didn't belong. I had to understand the truth of both of those things in the various relationships and spaces that I occupied in order for me to understand what I needed to feel accepted and belonging, right? Like, we can't overcome what we won't admit is there.
Right.
So if I don't admit that racism impacts me daily, that homophobia impacts me daily, that misogyny impacts me daily, then I won't be able to set up the conditions for me to feel more courageous, despite the systems that are meant to oppress me.
When did you feel your most uncomfortable, if you were to go with an age?
Oh my God. So early on.
Wow.
So early on. I remember one of my earliest memories of internal and external conflict. I was 3.
Yeah.
So we were raised Catholic.
Okay.
And
do you subscribe to faith now? I'm just curious.
I believe in collective connectivity. I believe in a higher power. I don't subscribe to any one institutional way of faith.
So would you say you're more of like a theist, or like there's this the sort of higher spirit and the sort of open-ended theology type concepts? Or?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, like I comfortably say that I'm spiritual, but I wouldn't. I mean, religion, some religions have continue to cause wars, to cause genocide. We're seeing that literally right now. So I have a hard time with institutions that get away with genocide in the name of God, in the name of, So anyways.
But sorry, yes.
Yeah. So Catholicism loves a binary, heaven, hell, good, bad. And I think that's why I became such a people pleaser too. Like, if I make sure everyone around me is pleased, then I am good, then I am going to heaven. I remember when I was 3, this is one of my earliest memories. I went to a Catholic school. I maybe didn't share or something. I can't remember what I did that was quote unquote bad, but I was sent to a corner. And the white teacher was like, Robin, go to the corner. I'm like, okay, why am I going to the corner? Miss, was I bad? Yes, you were bad. Go to the corner. And I was 3. So in my head, it's like bad girls go to hell. So I left school that day. I remember walking home, holding my mom's hand. I was so quiet. And then I just started crying and crying and crying. And she's like, why are you crying? What happened? I'm like, I'm going to hell, Mommy. I'm going to hell. What's the point of living? I'm just going to go to hell when I die. I might as well die now. I'm going to hell. And she was so surprised. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're going to hell? I'm like, I was sent to the corner because I was a bad girl. And you told me that bad girls go to hell. Whoa. And I've been a bad girl. So I'm going to hell. There's no redemption for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was an early example of feeling like this, I ain't it for this environment.
Okay.
And then just encountering things like that over time of being reprimanded for having feelings, being reprimanded for not agreeing, being reprimanded for, I was either too smart or not smart enough or too brown, but not brown enough for me to use the claim that treatment is racist.
Okay.
Right. Like,
I'm learning.
And then
where did you grow up, if you know me? I'm just trying to figure out the cultural milieu because I'm trying to contextualize the experience via my memory of sort of Canadian history. So what is the cultural milieu you're growing up in?
Yeah, for sure. So this 3-year-old example, I was living in Parkdale.
Okay.
And then when I was 6 or 7, we moved actually not too far from here, in Etobicoke.
Wow.
Yeah.
And even there, this sort of color divide you saw being clearly established. Yeah.
Especially where I went to school. It was a really small Catholic school, not the school in Parkdale, but when we moved. Yep. And I was one of very few people of color in my school.
Really?
Yeah.
So you have these experiences of otherness.
Mm-hmm.
How were you finding your tribe? You're talking about 3 years old. Who were you grouping with? Who were you linking with? Where was that outlet for you?
I didn't.
Really?
That's the thing. And, before we started recording, I was talking about the labor of masking. Yeah. There was so much masking of trying to belong, people pleasing, trying to belong to anybody.
Yeah.
And it never really felt like whatever I was doing was working, or I felt like, I would get pity friendships at recess.
Okay.
Like a teacher's like, oh, Robin's alone over there. Maybe go try checking on Robin.
Yeah.
These sorts of things. And every now and then I would find somebody like on a one-on-one level that we could vibe, and that was cool. And for a while I was hanging with the boys only. Like, I'm kind of sporty and tomboyish. So there were like a group of boys that I would play sports with, and that felt like, okay, I've got some people here. And then I was also a massive nerd. So there was one person that I connected with because we both were in the quote unquote gifted program. So the two of us would go to another school once a week. And we've maintained a bit of connection since. So there are like these like one-off places. And it wasn't until I was, I don't know, maybe 20. Wow. It wasn't until I was 20 that I started going to this Filipino Creative Center in Kensington Market, where I met other Filipinos that are like first and second generation like me, who are not trying to become teachers or nurses, which is what our culture wants us to be. Sure. And we were doing rad shit. Like, we were, creating, we were making art, we were, exploring our various creative pursuits. And that's when I really started to feel like, wow, this is what it feels like to belong. This is what it feels like to exist as I am, without question. Yeah. And that was a real turning point for me.
So 20 years old.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, in high school, when I went to high school, It was, high school's bigger than the elementary school. So there were way more people. And I was like, holy shit, look at all the people of color. Okay. And so that felt really cool to make friends with, folks with melanin and feel accepted. And that felt really, really good too. And that only increased as time went on. There aren't a lot of people in high school that I still maintain connection with, like maybe a couple folks.
Okay.
But that crew of Filipinos that I met through the creative world, like we're still buds. We call ourselves the village. And even though we live very spread out across Ontario now, we find a way to maintain that village connection with each other.
So you have this, what was your art of choice or your discipline of choice when joining the collective?
I really loved to sing. I also am, because I'm a nerd, I'm also very organized. So I became more of a program facilitator, project director kind of person, like a person to rein all the wild artists in, being like, these are the deadlines. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is where my gifted hat comes into play with a bunch of ADHD creatives. You know what I mean? Executive function. Let's go. But singing and writing and storytelling were my main milieus creatively. Mm-hmm.
Writing and storytelling, being a creative milieu, I don't want to say the story of your history lends itself to storytelling. Yeah, lends itself to the imagination, as it were.
It is a gossip column.
But I imagine that in these spaces of gaps of truth, your brain has filled in a great deal of stories about some of the characters in your life, maybe even stories about yourself. If you'd go there with me, what is one story you used to have about yourself that you don't have anymore?
That I'm not enough. Like my dad never ended up choosing me. And I always thought that if I was impressive enough, if I was good enough, if I was smart enough, if I was pretty enough, if I was skinny enough, if I was strong enough, if I was athletic enough, he would choose me. And so I would never, I didn't have the muscle of self-acceptance because I was just on that track of like, be better. And you will know you've become better when he chooses you. And he never did. Right. So that was a strong story. And even when I stopped vying for his approval or being chosen by him, and when I was conscious of that narrative, I'm like, fuck it. I know that my dad's never gonna whatever. It's fine. If he's never proud of me, it's cool. I'm proud of myself.
How old were you when that happened? That sort of passed through moment.
Yeah. Probably later in my 20s. Wow. Yeah, these are old programs. They're long running. Because they went unchecked for so long. They went unchecked.
So you get to this moment, but how did you get there? Because I'm thinking you have your artist collective, you're expressing yourself, you're seeing tribe, you're seeing your genius capacities, you're seeing where it's being accepted. Yeah. You go back to that core identity, that core story. Man, I got to be the most excellent to be chosen. Yes. I think it's impressive that you didn't do transference. A lot of times what people will do is they transfer that need of acceptance to other figures. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Yeah. But it sounds like it stayed with your father. And then you get to a point where you're like, you know what? This is unwinnable. Yeah. As a capitalist and as an entrepreneur and as a business person, in a dark way, I love this part of anybody's story. Yeah. Because I believe that for anybody to be successful, they need something that they want to do. They need a why, strong vision. They need to have experienced unconditional love, but they also need to have experienced unconditional disapproval. There needs to be that figure in your life for whom nothing you did was good enough. Ooh. You need that. It gives you that self-assurance. I struggled as a musician. I used to play to the audience all the time. Yeah. I could think of it now. If somebody said, who is it? I could pick their name. And now I say it with love, because without that, I wouldn't know what it's like to fight longer than possible, harder than possible, to stay in it forever, knowing what that ultimate truth of life, that despite your best efforts, sometimes you will lose. How did you get there?
Oh man, there were so many. I feel like there were a bunch of different ways that I got there. Yeah. One was I have a quote unquote invisible disability. So there were times where I would be rendered immobile, like I wouldn't be able to walk. And this disability went undiagnosed until right before the pandemic.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. So because, 4.5 years ago.
Yeah. Not too long ago when I finally got a doctor to listen to me. So the first round of examinations when I was in high school, I just kept on hearing from white men that it's all in my head. And this was before I was I found feminist politic. Sure. So I was like, well, this man with authority says it's all in my head. Okay. What can I do? Yep. Think differently. I know, I'll just think my disability away. And then I just assumed maybe it's because of my anatomy. I used to run, play ball, which is a lot of impact. This is probably just the result of all of the impact sports impact from the movement practices that I had. And then eventually I found yoga. I found yoga and I'm like, there's this, and cycling, long distance cycling. These were two things that got me in my body that didn't cause more pain. And then in those long distance bike rides and in yoga where I'm just in my own zone, I could start to hear my voices of how do I talk to myself when something is hard? How do I talk to myself when I'm really sweating? How do I talk to myself when I can't get the pose the way that the teacher's doing the pose? I started to really become aware of my internal narrative. And then that's what led me into more mindfulness practices like meditation. If I'm sitting in meditation, I did a meditation retreat when I was pregnant with my firstborn. And it was a silent 10-day so we were silent for 10 days. And we'd sit for 45-minute stretches. And I discovered so much about the different narratives in my head. And I'm like, who's put that there? I'd hear a thing. I'm like, wait a second. I don't actually believe that. I don't believe that I'm not enough. I don't believe that I deserve mistreatment. I don't believe that I should feel cowardly in spaces just because I'm the only person of color in the space, or I'm the only queer person in the space. I don't believe that I should feel less than. I don't think I am. Those sorts of realizations started to come through when I sat long enough with myself to hear what was going on internally. And then I started seeing my therapist, and that was really, really helpful. And anytime I found a practice that was helping me, I would then train in that modality and share it with others. So yoga, trained in it, started teaching yoga. Pilates, trained in it, started teaching it. Meditation, trained in it, started teaching it. And then I opened up GOODBODYFEEL, was first focused on mindful movement and self-empowerment. There wasn't the therapy piece yet. Okay. And then the therapy piece came in. I felt really, really helped and supported by my therapist, who is a woman of color. At the time that I was looking, there weren't many. And I didn't want to go to somebody who wouldn't understand on some level my lived experience. I needed somebody to understand the experience of racism. And I didn't want to have to prove to somebody that I was feeling shitty about, the microaggressions that one experiences on the daily when they're not white. Yeah. So then it felt I want to add to the resource list. I want to be able to show up for folks like me, who could really benefit from speaking to somebody with these social locations or identity intersections that aren't common in the therapy space. And that was one of my goals too, when I started teaching yoga and started teaching Pilates and meditation, that in this Western wellness context, there aren't a lot of folks that look like me that take up leadership positions or own studios. So that became a driving force. If I look like this, and say things like this, will I be able to reach people who have some shared experience with me that don't feel like they belong in these Western wellness spaces, because it is through these Western wellness spaces that I started to find my own belonging within myself, not necessarily within the studio. Yeah. So yeah, it's been learning of what has been helping me feel okay and empowered, and how will others benefit from that same recipe?
Your discipline of therapy is also in understanding historical traumas and how they have manifestations in the body. I don't know if that's too reductive a statement to say.
It is.
What would you say is the primary trauma that you had to work through in your early years of applying your discipline?
Like in terms of clients or my own?
Your own.
My own. Yeah. So the trauma of my dad,
and what physical manifestation was that one having on you?
I would say it does. So my anxiety, my performance anxiety is real. Okay, here, check this out.
Okay.
Check this out. So actually on Father's Day weekend even, like the timing was so divine. On Friday of Father's Day weekend, I think that was just last Friday.
Yeah.
I was part of a storyteller showcase.
Okay.
It was a 6-week program with a cohort, and it ended with us telling a story. So I told a story about anxiety, but specifically performance anxiety that manifested because of my dad's terrible demeanor.
Okay.
So my dad was really controlling. Karaoke, I told you karaoke was his thing, but karaoke he took so seriously. To him, it was performing. Yep. Like to him, all the greats are discovered at karaoke. Okay. And and for whatever reason, he thought I was his ticket into stardom. So he really tried to develop me into becoming a performing artist. Okay. So he gave me these rules of like, you have to practice a song at least 10 times at home on our at-home karaoke machine, which wasn't one of those like small, like ones that you can buy at Toys R Us now. It was like a $500 setup. Like my dad was serious about karaoke. We had like a mic mixer and everything. So I had to practice at home, and then I'd have to audition the song in front of him until I got his stamp of approval that it was stage ready. And by stage, we're talking about the karaoke stage in some karaoke restaurant in Mississauga. And if I didn't do those things, or if I showed up at karaoke and like sang a whatever song, and I still remember it, it was, the You Gotta Be by Desiree. You gotta be bad. You gotta be. Yeah. I sang that. It's like a fun song. I loved singing along to the radio singing along to that song on the radio. And I sang it. And my dad was pissed, and he didn't talk to me for the rest of that night. Anyways, so I told a story about that, about how I don't do karaoke anymore, because the last time I went to karaoke, my dad had a conniption fit, and it really, really hurt me. And right before I went on stage, all of the same physical sensations pre-performance that I used to get when I would perform in front of my dad were happening. Like it felt like I was having an anaphylactic reaction. Like my throat was closing, my tonsils felt like they were swelling, my ears were hot, my brain was going buzzy. And in my head, I could hear myself being like, you got to figure out the mucus level in your throat so that it's not too dry, but it's also not too mucusy. Otherwise you're going to crack. And if you crack, that'll be the end of it. And
the self-talk, the story, the writer in you's coming out.
Totally.
Yeah.
But then I felt all of my therapy tools and mindfulness tools counteract, being like, babe, crack. Yeah. Crack if you want to. Yeah. Disappoint the audience if you want to. Yeah. You're going to be fine. Like, suck. Actually, full permission to suck tonight. So yeah, the physical manifestation of anxiety is real. And then it's debilitating sometimes, like that, the inner narratives of you're not enough. Oh, but do it. Oh, I can be brave enough. No, you're not. You don't have what it takes. Like that is silencing. Yeah. That lives as pain in the body.
You mentioned being a parent.
Yes.
You also mentioned microaggressions.
Yes.
Mild racism. I also know where you live. I gotta ask. Is your partner a visible minority?
No.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
We hit one. We hit one. Here we go. What was that like? Because I'm going to tell you a story. Oh my goodness. Oh, I don't think she's going to be mad if she hears this. Oh no. I'm going to tell a story because this is unlinear. I was once in a relationship. I was once in a relationship where I was with a partner that was not of a. I'm trying to find my way in.
Yeah.
I was once in a relationship where I was with a partner that was not of my cultural background.
Yes.
At the time in my life, I was so fascinated by other cultures because I love learning. I would have been a great subject for a Disney cartoon because I love being like the fish out of water. You know, I would have been a great Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai to learn Japanese and like wield swords. So I was so captivated by these things. And in my assumed respect, you know, you figure out things that you know and you don't know. There's a percentage of my family, there's a huge percentage of my family that I would say is very modern, or at least very with the times, however people would say it. And then there's another percentage of my family that feel a great sense of disruption at the fact that my dating history had been mixed culturally. A strong sense, not just from the women, but from the men. And the energy that they gave is, look, we know where we're from, and we know how rare it is or how hard it is to put together a well-rounded man in these cultural systems because of societal pressures, because of sort of the destruction of the family. I'm an adult child of divorce, but my father's still very much in my life. I remember one time, my mom lives in Orangeville. I remember I went out there first week, moving in. Guy says, "Hey, is it just you and your mom?" I said, "Yeah, you know, parents got divorced." He goes, "But my dad's gonna come see me next week." And the guy says, "Wow, you still know him?" Just
Oh wow,
just the assumed thing. And it was nothing to me to tell people, no, my dad's still around.
Yeah.
My parents just don't like want to sleep together anymore.
Yeah.
But like, he still loves us, you know, like we're fine. But so all those things. So I was with this woman, and that used to sit in the back of my head anytime I would be in these relationships that one of my culture did. So I'm telling her a joke one time, and when I tell jokes, I do voices. And I was doing a voice, and I'm talking, and essentially I was telling her a story about a woman who said, "I know what I want, like, and I'm not gonna not go with what I want."
Yeah.
And my partner at the time laughs, and she goes, "Oh my God, ha ha ha. What color was she?" And I said, "She was white." "Why?" She says, "Oh, because you made her sound black." I said, "What? What do you mean?
What?
Sound black?" She's like, "You know, like those people on the Murray show." And I said, "But I'm black. I don't talk like that. Neither does my mom." Also, and then you know when you start just unraveling?
Yeah.
I'm like, also, there's been white people on the Murray show. Like, I started to go through the levels. And she was from Mississauga. And I started to think, like, you've never heard a black person not talk in Ebonics? Is that what that's what's happening here?
Yeah.
And she cared about me a lot. I could not get over it.
Yeah.
Couldn't get over it. My little sister, very militant. I love her. But she came to me and said, "I will have no respect for you if you get back with this."
LOL. Yes, sister.
So I say all that to say
Oh my God.
that sometimes the idea, especially when you're something you said that so ignited me, I don't want to be in a relationship where I have to explain the racism that I should think would be clear to somebody who claims to love me. How did you navigate that with your partner? Okay, go. React.
One, I love you, Craig. You're the best. Two, so my partner is white.
Yes.
And we connected because we had shared experiences of being forced loners. Like we weren't accepted. My partner, I'm not gonna divulge because I don't know. That's their story
to tell. Gotcha.
That's their story. But we were able to connect on what it's like to be alone, to feel like endlessly alone, and misunderstood by family, misunderstood by peers at school to the point where it's like, I'm just gonna like fuck about my business alone, you know? So we had that shared understanding. 2, they went to school at Central Tech, downtown Toronto.
Yep.
So, they were often in circles that weren't exclusively white, unlike their older brother. So there was already this like consciousness, critical race consciousness within my partner. So we were able to meet there.
Okay.
And earlier when you're like, oh, impressive that you didn't really transfer. You're like, choose me.
I was wrong. We're about to find out how I was wrong.
So there definitely was a choose me going on. Okay. And it's like the internalized racism within me. Like if a white person.
Did you have that?
I wasn't conscious of it. It wasn't conscious until afterwards.
So you had the white man so good feeling.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Where it's like, fucking made it. I won white man lottery, fucking made it.
For the credit score alone, man. For the credit score alone. Yeah.
But that wasn't operating consciously. And I didn't realize it was operating consciously until the pandemic. When I was like,
was this before or after you guys had a child?
After.
Super yikes. Hold on. Wait. You had a possible pick-me dynamic. You had internalized racism.
Yeah.
And you had a white savior complex.
Yeah.
With the father of your child.
You should also be a therapist.
No. Because I don't know if I can live with this today. And you didn't find out that was the case until the world stopped.
Yeah, I feel like there were elements that I was discovering, but there were things that I could sweep under the rug.
Do you have a girl child or boy child?
Both of them are non-binary, actually.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm curious, because if there was an identity and it was a daughter, and I'm thinking we are multiplying the white savior complex twice.
Yeah.
We're gonna be off to the races here soon. But okay, so we hit the pandemic, and there was a recontextualizing of all this for you.
Yeah.
And what was that like? And what was your journey through that?
I think it was more like, wow, there is so much that I'm sacrificing that I don't need to.
Okay.
Like, wow, I'm really. Oh, you like the comfier blanket? Okay. Yes. Oh, you want the comfier? Okay. And then I realized during the pandemic of how much of myself I was giving away in that like people pleasing mentality of like, okay, I guess this is the cost of being chosen. Yeah. I like the way that I hustled towards exceptionalism to be chosen by my dad. Yeah. Like giving Craig the comfier pillow was nothing. It feels like nothing. But all of those things added up being like, fuck it, I want the comfier pillow. Yeah. Buy me a pillow.
Yep. Feel comfortable to have your voice.
Yeah.
To be a participant in the relation, an equal participant in the relationship. Yeah.
Yes. And in so many ways, the power dynamic. Okay, here's a segue. Yep. Or like tangent rather. The other day, I met this performer. They were advertising their fringe show. South Asian, and the show of her show is called The Colonized Circus. Okay. And I joked, and I was with my partner Craig, and I was also with my mom, and I'm like, this is my colonizer Craig. And we were laughing. And then my mom was like, is Craig your colonizer, or did you colonize Craig? And my mom is right. Like, cause Craig is the most willing, the most open to feedback, the most down to wrestle in the mud until everyone feels good. Yes. And that's why we still can kick it. And I've had to have some really hard conversations with them to be like, you gotta use your privilege as a shield. Like if we're gonna continue to do this, like you gotta use your privilege as a shield. Support me, protect me. Like you don't like those people, neither do I, but you're white and you're male presenting, like help me. Yeah. That's you. That's your way of contributing to my liberation and to my sense of safety. Yes. And they're down. They're so down. So I don't want to set it up like, oh, I always bent backwards for Craig. I'm not easy to be in a relationship with. Like,
it is interesting that you define it that way.
Yeah.
As easy and hard. You have been one of the most open-minded. You do not think in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most black and white thing you said. It is so interesting that you said that.
Well, simple ain't easy. I'm not saying that and something not easy isn't, because something isn't easy doesn't make it bad. It just is like, it's challenging.
But why? Like, see, I really want to fix on this because from what you're describing, Craig is perfectly calibrated to handle. You said he was willing to learn.
Yeah.
He was willing to have conversations. He's willing to adjust.
Yeah.
I could throw a quarter and not find 7 guys like that across the street.
It's true.
So he's calibrated.
Yeah.
I don't know if he sees it through the window of easy and hard as much as capable and incapable. I think of, some of my friends, I have a circle of 4 guys that are married. I love everything about their marriages. They're in the Hall of Fame. One of them's behind the glass. Love everything. I could not make it 7 days with their partner. So I'll tell you that right now. But they're perfectly calibrated for the people in their circle.
Yeah.
I would almost challenge you to say, it's not easy, it's not hard. It's just you found the person for whom the calibration works. I love
that. Thank you for that reframe.
That's what I think. Because if we say difficult, we say hard, we say I didn't bend over backward. All these statements, it's like you're trying to fight to reclaim ground. There is no ground. I've been properly calibrated for my partner.
Ooh, I love that.
We're sharing the space together type thing.
Yeah.
Which I think elevates the discussion. Because we also need to permit men to submit and still be manly.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Say that again.
For example, a buddy of mine, we're supposed to do a guys' night. I'm the resident guys' night house because I have no kids. So they all descend upon me. I am like Mecca and they come to see Muhammad. And him and his wife had a bit of a row that day. And, he says, look, I can't, I'm not leaving. Something's going on here. It's not like she said, don't leave. It's not like she said, I'm angry. They had a row about something totally different. And his statement to us is something's off. So I'm not leaving her. And we as men didn't say, come on, bruv, what do you mean? There's this thing of, yeah, man, fix that, whatever that is. And that being okay matters. Because I remember a time in college when it would be like, come on, who wears the pants? And we have to I think, step away from that to become a bit more collaborative. I set all that up to say this. We're living in a time now where the echo chambers of debate are becoming so quickly and so strongly divided. How do you find it sharing your concepts? Because you're working with people, with people who might be coming from a different political echo chamber when speaking. Are you seeing yourself policing what you're saying? Are you being free flowing? What is that like for you, Ben, in a public space, running a business?
For the most part, folks reach out to me, like they seek me out knowing, and I'm very clear about what I stand for. So when folks willingly sign up for me, it feels like, okay, we get it, right? We're all here, we're getting it, and we're down to wrestle. Let's go. One of the aspects of my work is I lead an anti-racism, anti-oppression workshop. Sometimes it's more like a consulting situation, depends on who's seeking me out. So there was a law firm that reached out to me to lead a series of workshops to get everybody on the firm on the same page, have a shared vocabulary, shared understanding of what racism looks like in the modern context. Because racism doesn't necessarily look like folks in KKK gear now. It looks like that exchange you shared about voices. Or someone being like, oh, you still know your dad? Like, of course I do. What? So it's in those like sneaky, insidious ways. Anyways, so to get folks on the same page around that. And there were a couple a couple lawyers in that firm that knew of my work, have listened to keynotes, like they know what I'm about. They're like, Robin's the one, bring her in.
Yep. And a couple that didn't.
There were, oh man. Wow, it was, I'm glad I charged what I charged. Let's just
super say. Yikes. Wow. Okay.
I knew it was going to be, I had a feeling it would be a lot because like these folks there were only 2 people that were vouching for me. Right. Everyone else, it became a mandatory workshop for them.
How big is the group?
100 something.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah. So
it's less than a 1% identity rate. So you're flipping 99% of the room almost?
Yeah. And it was really difficult. I didn't censor myself, but what I did is I took for granted where I needed to begin the conversation. Like I entered in at like first year university level. Sure. I needed to enter in at kindergarten.
Sure, yeah.
And I needed to have like, you know, sometimes you'll meet those kindergarten teachers who are all heart and patient. I could never be a kindergarten teacher. Gotcha. I'm not that. And I could not be that for this group of people. It was really hard. I did not police what I said.
Yeah. Do you think we have to? Like, as people with ideas, right? Many of us have ideas, so few of us think about them long enough to say them out loud. So as those of us who are willing to be bold enough to assess our world and then share our perspective, do we have a responsibility to make sure it's landing with the audience, or do you think we just got to shoot it and then, you know, come hell or high water, it's up to them?
Yeah, I think it's a both and, you know, where like it depends on the context. Like in the context of, because I have this online course called Sharing Privilege. It's my like anti-oppression 101 course. And some feedback that I got from other folks in a similar line of work are like, you're so soft. But there are people who take the course and are like, whoa, that was really spiky.
Okay.
So to one person, I'm like catering to my audience, and to the audience, I'm being spiky. Yeah. And on one part of me is like, okay, depending on the context, if the goal is to get everybody into the arena, then how can I set myself up for success and that person up for success to come into the arena so that they're willing to do the work with us? Yeah. So there's a level of me that does that. And I do a lot of like nervous system regulation, and like, I will start an anti-racism, anti-oppression workshop being like, me too. Like, I am not above this work.
Right.
I will disappoint you. I might microaggress you one day unconsciously, and I commit to taking accountability for it. Right. So if I am capable of acting in unconsciously oppressive ways, so are you. Right. So I enter it kind of like that.
Yep. Team player, like we're all
doing it. Yep. We're all doing it. So there's a part of me that's like, yeah, can we like, we're all on the same team. And then it's like, all right, team, buckle up. Like, we gotta go. We gotta go. So there is a cajoling, not a policing, but a like, how can I get you to understand me? Like if I'm centering mutual understanding, how can I get that? But it's contextual, because I agree with you that if we have an idea and we're courageous enough to have an idea, I don't necessarily have to play to the audience. I just need to get my idea out there.
Right. I ask this of everybody who works in this sort of field, or in the I call it the mind transformation disciplines.
Oh, thank you.
Do you think you'll convert enough minds to create a world that will be more accepting and less racist towards your children?
That's definitely the hope. Yeah. That's definitely the hope. And I see it happening, you know, like the circles that are forming and growing around me, my family, my community, my clients, you know, like it's happening and it's beautiful. I don't want to say it's because of me. It's because of openness and collective effort into accepting the things that are hard to accept that we've turned a blind eye to for so long. And that's really beautiful. Like my kids already have it way better off than I do. I mean, they occupy different social locations than me, but like that already is enough for me to know that they'll have less barriers to using their voice than I did.
How old are your kids?
10 and 8.
Oh, wow, you have adults.
Yeah.
You're paying rent.
Yeah. Say that again.
Do you want any more?
No, I am done.
Retired, huh?
Yeah.
Hanging up the gloves.
Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting through lines of what we talked about, I didn't know how the conversation about your parents would lead us here. But in seeing how you navigated through that, then your choice of partner, then the education work that occurred in service of the children that were already here. It's a lot of hero work back to back to back. So I want to commend you.
Thank you.
First and foremost, I don't know if you've seen I don't know if sometimes when you're in it, you don't know, but I don't know if you see the connective tissue of each brave individual step taken to create a better foundation.
Wow. Thank you for reflecting that to me.
It's a tapestry. If there's something that you wanted to plug and let our audience know about yourself, please, this is an opportunity for you to do it. What is one thing you want them to know? Yeah.
Find me, GOODBODYFEEL.com.
Yep.
Hire me as your therapist. Bring me into your organization so that I can help the group dynamic vibe through relational dynamics and anti-racism, anti-oppression learning. And let's do it. Let's like make that better world for all of us.
Let's do what we can.
Let's do what we can.
Let's figure it out. Guys, my name is Travell. This has been Unlinear, where we track the unlinear path of our guests, talking about sort of current events and topics. This once again has been Robin. Hopefully this was something that spoke to you. If you liked it, please check her out online on Instagram. She told you where she is. You have no reason not to follow up. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much.